Hey YouTube, this is Dolan. Today I'm gonna review um one of my one of my handheld consoles that I had ever since I was a child. From like about its time around its time period in the early 2000s. It's a handheld that is around the same time period as the Nintendo GameCube from 2001. And it's another one of Nintendo's best-selling handhelds that sells more than what the GameCube has to offer. So here it is. It's the Game Boy Advance. Now this console came out in 2001 and was an attempt to replace the Game Boy Color with more advanced graphics. Unfortunately, there's still no light indicator, unfortunately. But it does have more features than the Game Boy Color and the original Game Boy. The biggest part is, get this, bumper buttons. It's got a left bumper button, right bumper button. In addition to those, it's got the usual D-pad, start and select, B and A. It's got the word Game Boy Advance on it. And the screen is in color as well, but the graphics are way more advanced. It's like they don't call this the Game Boy Advance for nothing. It's got a little speaker right here. Underneath, it's got a headphone jack right here. Volume dial. On-off switch. On top is got the extension port to use a link cable to link this thing between, so you can compete with another, so you can play games with another Game Boy Advance or whatever, or vice versa. I mean, it's got the cartridge port, and on the back it has a battery compartment, and again it uses 2 AA batteries, even though my battery cover is wearing out. It's more of a wider handheld that is nice to hold, actually. It's nice to grip on, actually. It's a nice handheld to hold in its own right. It's in a it claims to be blue, but it looks more purple than blue. Anyway, now the games I had for it so far, well, during that time period in my childhood, I didn't really necessarily get much games for the Game Boy Advance. And I didn't get more until I became a teenager eventually. And now today I still continue to get more. The only game I don't have is Super Mario something. Like Super Mario Advance, I think. And also Mario Kart Super Circuit, unfortunately. Which I would have loved that game, by the way. But anyway, those games are another story entirely. But I'll show you games that I currently have in my stash. Like the famous Game Boy Advance games that I currently have right now is Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, as well as Pokemon Ruby. I used to have Pokemon Emerald, but I don't know what happened to it. I lost it on the move, so it's long gone, unfortunately. So there goes that. But my first games I'll show you for this console, that I didn't really, I'll be honest, I didn't really play much, but here's the first 2 games I got. The Scooby Doo game from 2002, based on the Scooby Doo movie, I guess. I forgot the name of the Scooby Doo movie, but this is a Warner Brothers licensed game. A Disney one called Finding Nemo on Game Boy Advance, which unfortunately uses a password system, which is another story entirely. Sorry, I think I should have just mentioned that on the review when I talk about the game itself. And two new ones I got. Well, they're not new anymore, but the two I got from when I was a kid also was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a Game Boy Advance version of the PlayStation 2 game that I also have. It's the same game, just the gameplay is different because this is on a Game Boy Advance console, so the gameplay tends to be different because usually the idea of bringing a game with you often meant compromising its playability. Sorry, I'm just going to move the camera a little so that way you'll see the view of the games that I currently have along with this. Anyway, moving on, I have Spyro 2 Season Flame, and as I progress as a teenager, I managed to get more games, actually. I may not have a whole lot compared to the PlayStation 2 library I have, which hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about those games soon. I have Pac-Man Pinball, which I really enjoy, personally, since I like Pac-Man. I grew up with it. Pac-Man Collection, Namco Museum, which is a port from the PlayStation 2 version, which is probably a port from the home console versions, just on a handheld. Ed and A, The Misadventures from, I played the GameCube version and I enjoyed this one, but I haven't played this one when I was a kid, but I would have loved it when I was a kid. I still do enjoy it, but I wish I had it when I was a kid, then I would have loved it, but it's okay. I'll be fine. Ed and A Jawbreakers. Whoa, sorry. As you can see, Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase, which I might enjoy that game. I don't know. Scooby Doo Mystery Mayhem. NASCAR Heat 2002, which is I originally played on the PlayStation 2. Lego Bionicle on the Game Boy Advance. Top Gear Rally. Need for Speed Most Wanted. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for the Bikini Bottom. Sorry, I should have read it. Mario Party Advance. Quad Desert Fury. Disney's Herbie Fully Loaded. Ford Racing 3, which apparently is a sequel to Ford Racing 2, surprisingly. I don't know why I never encountered that game when I was a kid. Now, here's a Hot Wheels game that I would have loved if I saw it as a kid, called Hot Wheels All Out and Tetris World. Oh wait, it's Tetris Worlds, which I would have loved this game if I ever encountered it. I first played Tetris when I used to have a not too much of an advanced phone compared to today's smartphones, but on a Verizon MP3 phone, I used to play that game called Tetris Pop, which I'm sure might have been the best Tetris games the Verizon MP3 had to offer. But unfortunately, those kind of phones have been discontinued along with that game probably by now, so I'll be fine. There's no need for me to have that game. Hopefully I can emulate that game one day, which I'm sure will be another story entirely. I'm sure the only way I could play it again is the same way as the rest of the internet. But anyway, let's move on. Banjo-Kazooie, Gabunty's Revenge, which I never heard of that title. I heard Banjo-Kazooie, but I've never seen this game. And a Need for Speed game that I can't really read because of how tiny the words are, but if you can, if you guys can somehow tell me what the game, if you guys can figure out what kind of Need for Speed title this is, please type it in the comments to let me know. But anyway, now to... Sorry. Anyway, I better... Now to... Now to, now to show you what the graphics are like. Just for the heck of it. And this is what the boot up screen is like when you turn it on. Sorry, the screen's a little dimly lit. Well, that's graphics. Well, that's graphics right here. Alright. You get the idea. Sorry the screen was dimly lit. There's no backlight on this thing, like I said, so... So yeah, unfortunately. But that didn't matter, actually. That didn't stop this thing from selling well. Like, that didn't stop this from selling well. No matter... Regardless of this thing not having a backlit screen, I mean... This thing still sold well. And I'm certainly glad I still have a working model that I got. In fact, I got this console since I was a kid. This particular one, I still have to this day. This one is my first console ever since I was a child. And it still works to this day. Which is pretty good going for a console this old. Well, it used to be new with me at the time when I was a kid, but now these days, it's considered retro. Like a classic. And I'm certainly glad I still have it to this day. So you're wondering how you're going to play the older Game Boy games. Well, the saving grace on this console I forgot to mention is that regarding its library of games, it's backwards compatible with the Game Boy, with the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. Don't believe me? Let me show you proof. I'll put this game in. Shows you that it fits, and it will play it. As well as this weird-looking Game Boy Color cartridge, which will also work with the regular ones. Even though it sticks out funny like that, but otherwise works pretty good, actually, as long as you make sure the contacts on the pins are clean. Like I said, on the cartridge pins are clean. Oh. And one feature I forgot to mention is that it has a light indicator on the corner right here. It powers on when you turn on the system. If it's green, that means the battery is good, but if it's red, then that means the batteries are low. Much like the Nintendo DS, which that's another story entirely. But yeah. If you're going to play this in the dark, be sure to buy a light indicator accessory. I'll talk about those in another video. But for now, I only want to talk about the Game Boy Advance itself. So, bottom line, yeah. If you're into the Game Boy genre, and this is considered one of the last Game Boy models, in addition to the Game Boy Advance SP, or the Game Boy Micro, which I'll talk about those sometime soon. But yeah, if you're into the game, if your gaming experience is in the Game Boy world, you would love this system right here, because it plays any Game Boy titles that you could think of that could play it. So anyway, like I said, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and as well as subscribing, be sure to hit the bell button. Be sure to tap on that bell button or click on it or whatever to, to get notified of when the next video is going to be uploaded. And be sure to leave a like. Oh, and also you can comment of what kind of Need for Speed game this is. If you can somehow figure out what it is and tell me, please let me know. But yeah, this is me signing off.